Well, shalom, shalom. I had a major revelation this week in wisdom and understanding. Okay, this is the principal thing we're supposed to always be striving for. The Bible says, Torah says in Proverbs, get wisdom, get understanding. And with all you're getting, you know, the point that you want to get is to get knowledge. We need to have some knowledge. All right. Everybody is talking about, is concerned about the data. You got to get the data right. And you can't, there's only certain data you can put out there. Okay. Well, and a lot of it, people are saying, well, it's not really based on knowledge, the full scope of what we can know. So this is a very important principle, because what knowledge will enable you to do is it'll give you the what to do. Okay. You don't want to be a deer who's like frozen, you know, in the headlights. You need to be able to know what to do. That's what he says to you, oh man, know what to do. If you know Torah, you know what to do. And it came to me that how not knowing Torah or keeping or implementing Torah on so many different levels affects all of us and is severely affecting a group of people on the topography of the planet today. And I want to get into that. But it was about green belts. Now we know that for the land, the Levites were told, or one of the whole precepts that Israel was supposed to base itself on, because it was an agricultural powerhouse. That was its economy. Its oil and its wine were its #1 exports, along then with all sorts of other things. But because it was, they had certain, the Father had given them, you know, and this is the point, through Moshe, a way to preserve the land so that they would always be able to produce at the top of their game. And one of it was called the Jubilee. Practicing this 7 years, and then on the 7th year, you let the land grow fallow, and you don't work it, so to speak. It gets to rest. This concept of rest, the 7-day cycle, the Sabbath. Today is a Sabbath. We rest. But there's also a larger picture. 7 times 7 makes 49, which is called the Jubilee. And the Jubilee was even more important, because the Jubilee didn't just let the land rest. The Jubilee was where then, like, the people who were caught up in the cycle of the Erev Rav, okay, and I'll come back to that, could be freed, could also get out of and have a time of rest, okay? So that's what I want to talk about. And then how green belts, so this is another thing that's in there that's on the level of practicing a Shemitah and a Jubilee, which I had never known before, which I think is interesting, what I want to tell you. Okay, so I have recently moved to a new part of the country, and I'm very near Cary, North Carolina, okay? And I have, this is, you know, I've visited a lot, but driving around Cary, it struck me, and I kept saying to myself, honey, you don't really ever know you're in this huge megalopolis of unbelievable amounts of people, except when you're on the highways driving and there's so much traffic. But everything is enclosed in a green belt. And then he explained to me what that was. And then just lo and behold, later I started reading on a whole different subject, and they start talking about it. But this is the concept in Torah with the Levites. One of the things we miss, and I'm going to contrast something. If you read, especially about the third temple, and then if you read about the city of Jerusalem, and somehow you get to picture in your mind, which somehow is hard for Ephraimites to do, because what was going on with all the divisions of the land, the plots, why this one was this length, why this one did this. The Levites were told and given a city planning system to make green belts so that the city of Jerusalem could always stay a blessing. This is a key of urban planning that we've somehow lost in the landscape of America planning, yet Cary has done it marvelously, and it makes a huge difference. But this concept of green needs to be expanded back to every socioeconomic group. All right. And I'll come back to that. Now, so what I want to say is the Levites were not given a land inheritance, but they were given land within each of the cities and everything. But see, it wasn't theirs to pass on generationally to their offspring. Actually, they were keeping green belts for all generations, for all time. The ancients understood, excuse me, 100% the connection between man and nature. There's some kind of very symbiotic relation. They say, if you really want to be close to God, you go out to nature, which hasn't changed for thousands of years, despite what the AI world wants to tell us. But The point is you're, and this is the point, it's a God-given right. That's why the national parks, they came up with the idea that we have a right to land that is sacred for all generations, that cannot be altered. God gave, and he gave the responsibility of keeping this concept in urban planning with the Levites. Okay, which is more, but this is brilliant city planning. But on the flip side, see what happens is, okay, and people have always wondered, well, Nebuchadnezzar, and there's a thing called the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, which is one of the ancient wonders of the world. Well, it just came to me. I'm like, oh, that explains what was so splendid. The guy, obviously, Nebuchadnezzar was an insanely good city planner, and he was able to make the whole city like a garden. So now, this is what, no matter where you went, you could step out your door and you could be in nature. You didn't have to know you were in a city in this huge urban area first. Okay. Yes, and and this gets into city planning and zoning, all these kind of things. But one thing that struck me, that was probably the most beautiful city on the planet. Now, it was done in a godless way. God didn't get the glory. It wasn't done according to, that, yes, this was originally a God-given design. But the point is, that's what was going on, in my opinion, now with the quote unquote, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. But it is something that is the responsibility of Torah keeping people, as they're active in there, to keep that standard in the society at large. This access to green belts, this is what I learned, is a right, a God-given right from God to us that no one has the right to take away. This is so interesting, and yet we don't even know this. Okay, so how does this relate? And I have to go back to it came into my mind as this famous song by Joni Mitchell. Now I'm dating myself generationally, but she was a great, her songs were just great. And she had a very famous song, and the lyrics, I mean, this is so prophetic and so true then, it's true now, it's always been true. And the phrase goes, the lyrics go, they paved paradise and they put up a parking lot. This is our present day urban landscape with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hotspot. Don't you always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. They took all the trees and put them in a tree museum and charged the people $1.50 just to see them. I mean, the reverse psychology of this is just amazing, and it is so true. But even in Cary, and I have to say, and I'm only using them as an example because I've never experienced this in any other, because it technically calls itself a suburb. It's not really, but in any other really metropolitan area that I've been in. I just drove down the eastern seaboard and it was awful. There's so few in the urban areas. It's just a massive parking lot. And that's for just pavement and pavement and pavement, hot spots. But anyways, then I was listening another time, kind of randomly, to this show. I think it was NPR for some reason, but it caught my attention because she was talking about this concept that I knew was kind of embedded in what keeping green belts in urban areas would do for everyone, and why God would say that it's a God-given right. So this is a twofold thing. We have a problem with, and I'm not giving credence to the official narrative of global warming, no, but there is a fact that temperatures are rising. I mean, this is a fact in certain areas, and certain pockets of countries, cities are really suffering. I mean, I have a friend out in California. She's telling me, yeah, the heat's getting 115 degrees. That's pretty crazy. But what was done was a study, a socioeconomic study of, okay, because it's known, okay, so how do you relieve extreme heat? All right, so if you're a city person in responsibility, you have to figure out how to give relief, right? Okay. And one historic way has always been, quote unquote, in a green belt, because they know now that trees and shade and lower the temperature. If people can get out of the urban landscape there where the pavement goes up even higher, that can be life-saving. That can literally be between life and death. And this is what is so important. And so, okay, so the concept is we do have a disparity. They counted all the trees, and they counted all the trees in one city or something, and it was disproportionately, so that lower socioeconomic groups obviously did not have access to as many trees, and the urban areas or the more prosperous areas did. Okay, so yes, you drive around Cary, a very prosperous town, city right now, booming. And yes, there is definitely a demographic that is benefiting. But the important thing is, in one sense, is that they got that right. Whoever those city planners were, they got that right. And it is, even if you know, like in a condo, residents in a condo, and even there's a little lake, there's a path, there's a nature path, there's like a little beach area, and all these little places, they keep the landscape, the people tethered. You can even in now there are parts that they're not, you know, I know the triangle, there's parts that are definitely getting more paved than others, but the basic concept, it just really struck me. So anyways, it's not expensive to plant trees. I mean, seriously, I mean, if you need to help relieve a situation, Yeshua said, listen, he said that you will always have the poor with you. In the socioeconomic, you know, there are poor people of every ethnic group on the planet in our, you know, kind of socioeconomic lower class areas. That this, you know, there are what do they call that? Rural poor. There's urban poor. They're like, all right. But my point is, the city planners, it is the responsibility, and it is so as we rebuild our cities, this is another thing to understand. You know, we have a real problem. Some of our cities are so devastated on so many levels. But I got to have hope and believe, and especially because we're so close to the millennium, that somehow the rose is going to bloom in the desert. We are going to come into a time when these problems will be solved. And I know that one of them will be in this concept, because paradise and parts, you know, God put Adam in a paradise. He didn't put him in a parking lot, you know. Our nature is to be in nature. We should, and this is part of the millennial promise to go outside our home and to be immersed in nature. Everybody, this was the American dream, people. This is what's being stolen from us. Oh my gosh. You know, the fact that so few people have access to that ability to just go outside. You're owning little plots of land, this whole concept that you can you know, it sounds silly, I guess, but it is so not. It is so fundamentally important to the human psyche to be able to be close to the earth. And the Levites, this is another thing, they always, and it says they did this deliberately so that they could help people always stay in a kind of connection of spirituality. Because I'll tell you something, people, the ancients, this is what is understood, and we need to understand this. Nature is God on a certain level. It is understood as the immanence of God. It says that's why Paul says everybody's going to be without excuse. The creation is too intelligent and too living to not be a part of God, okay? And not that we worship it, but we acknowledge and we are stewards. We need to work with. So I'm saying, like Israel, you know, when they came back to the land in 1948, and they started way before that, around the turn of the century, one of the biggest things they did to bring the land up to being an agricultural powerhouse again was to plant trees. You know, and so I think this is extremely important. And now that I know it's biblical and it was the Levites' responsibility, I'm saying, oh man, you need to get knowledge of the Torah, the weightier matters, the upper ones, the higher levels. See, the thing about getting Chokmah and Bina is this level of intelligence. This is what understanding the tree of life will tell you. This level of intelligence, getting Chokmah and Bina, which produces knowledge, and it translates into knowledge of what to do, what is balanced and fair, what will take, you know, taking all things into consideration. You know, you're not going to eliminate poverty with one program, but you sure are going to be able to alleviate a lot of urban issues with implementing city. You know, all the money should not go disproportionately. I do agree with a lot of these things, that you've got to keep a fair balance. All right, there's some inalienable things like good education, you know, clean water. There are certain things that, and because our cities they're falling down on, oh my gosh. Anyways, but what I just want to go back to another thing. I want to keep moving on this. So, but so then we have this problem, like, you know, when Joni Mitchell sings these songs, she starts out with they paved paradise. Well, growing up, my dad, we always get in these big discussions. He really encouraged critical thinking and critical discussion, was great. And he would always, and I'd say, well, they're doing this and they're doing that, crying out even as a young person, young age, against what perceived injustices. And he would always say to me, who are they? And I'm like, well, I don't know who they are, the they out there, these people. And now as I've gotten old, I understand, but it's not like to point a finger and say, oh, the they that's referred to here, okay? In our Torah, in an understanding of this, I didn't really finish my thought, and I'm so sorry. This level of intelligence outside of us. In other words, we can't make this up. The Torah is very clear. This is God-given. This is the Deuteronomy, level where the hidden understanding of why the Father was asking them and telling them, and that they were working with on doing these things, making the tabernacle, dressing the high priest, organizing themselves. There's a reason. There's a and that is up here. And if you can understand this reason, like again, why green belts are inalienable rights. They're not just for the rich and prosperous neighborhoods, okay? I mean, that's just a fact. We're going to have to eat that one to a certain extent, okay? And it's not going to break a city budget. I mean, get groups together. I mean, and even if we have time, well, I don't want to get into this. Who knows if we have time to plant all these trees? Who knows? But I think it will be part of bringing back the millennium. I mean, we do have a scorched earth situation to a large extent around the planet, but either way. So this is an important level of that's why it's called get wisdom, because you've got to get up here. You've got to get beyond man's Erev Rav, which is down in this. Now, what I mean is, the Bible is very clear that everybody is, we all have a fallen nature. We are all prone to sin. We are all prone to going a little bit too far, getting a little too greedy, eat a little too much, or, get a little too loose in our morals. I mean, this is something we have to always be on guard. But there is a group that the Bible very clearly delineates, and they're called the Erev Rav, or they're called the wicked. And they're wicked. This is in the mixed multitude. I don't have time to really go, but the mixed multitude is always been sort of the problem people on the planet, not wholly good, not wholly bad, but extremely carnal. Okay. But within them, hidden always deeply, they like to hide behind the good people, is this Erev Rav. And that's who they are. Okay, and this is why Yeshua said you have to judge them by their fruit. Fruit is a code word for character. Character in Hebrew is the midos. You need to only allow people with good midos to rule and reign over you. If you can do that, you can live a peaceable life. And that's the way our Constitution was written. That was the whole idea. I come from New England, and people always love to poo-poo. Oh, they were so strict back then. Oh, you had to go to church on Sunday, or you just had all these, and they don't even understand. Again, this lack of knowledge of what to do. If you want to live, I don't want to live in a chaotic society where I've got to keep my doors locked 24/7 and pay for all this expensive security. And, I just want to be able to go outside my house, and I want to trust my neighbors, and I want to live. Okay. I mean, people want a good life, right? They don't want to live amongst, but anyways, so there's five words, Hebrew words. And this is an interesting subject worth many teachings on many levels of these words and the people that are attached to them. But you have this group called Amalek. See, these are code words. This is how, I don't want to get into that. Just the Amalek are really the world rulers and leaders. There are people who just, because of their knowledge, their understanding, their occult, they are just managed to keep themselves as world rulers and leaders. We see that today. That's the 3%ers, the Kabbalah. Then there's the Nephilim. This is another group. These are people who, so I just want to say, let me go down in order in sort of severity. You have Amalek, the world rulers and leaders who keep the people in subjection. These are the pharaohs of the world who oppress God's people. Nephilim are the adulterers. Then you have the people who can be morally compromised so easily because they just have bad mitos, bad character, no self-control. And they end up, and they promote, and you see this, who runs Hollywood but a bunch of adulterers who want to legitimize their lifestyle on so many perverted levels. Then you have the Gibborim. Now these are the Gibborim giants, Gabor, giants of pretenders, and it puts in this category religious pretenders, people who might look all pious. Yeshua referred to them as whitewashed sepulchres. I mean, yeah, you might look good, you might, say everything right and bow at the right time, all this kind of stuff, but you are definitely a pretender, an actor, a hypocrite. All right. And the Rephaim, okay, the backstabbers is another group of people. People just, they act like they're with you. They act like, and this was a big problem with Moshe, was a big problem with the mixed multitude. And this is what they tolerated. See, if you tolerate these people in the church, amongst our fellowships, if we just let everybody, whatever, I don't care if you're a religious pretender, you can come to church and pretend it's okay with me. No, it's not. But the backstabbers, and then the Anakim, which are called the long-necked. This is okay, long-necked, the proud, the arrogant, the frauds. They're just really not humble. They really have an arrogance about them. These are character traits. Basically, you put them together, meet those types of people that we allow to just totally be amongst us, and especially in our spiritual mind, life, and fellowship. Okay, the leaven that levels the whole lump, leavens the whole lump. But Amalek, I will tell you, and the sages will tell you this, the teachings in the Torah, that all of these groups, the Nephilim on down, can be, what's the word I'm looking for? Can be changed. They can change. They can be restored. They can repent. They can do tikkun and teshiva. The Amalek, not so. This is the curse. If you ever read deep into the pseudographia, and it's all over, talks about this cursed race. Cain was of a cursed race. And that's because these people are, like it says, almost irredeemable. That's why there's a place called Tartarus, or where is it? The lake of fire that's reserved for the devil and his angels and certain really wicked. I mean, it's just, okay, and that's just the way it is. All right, and this is who Yeshua, this is who Messiah ben David, this is the group right now, because they happen to be ruling at the end of the age. We were told these wicked, this 3% Kabbalah are ruling, and that's why Messiah ben David, we're looking for a Mashiach. Everybody's saying, come Mashiach. It's a God-sized job now to fight this problem we have, who they are. But in the meantime, yeah, planting trees. But I'm, and a tree is the tree of life. Who would have thought that something on such a pashat level, I would see such a profound significance for it. But I also want to end this with another quote from Maimonides. He is a brilliant Torah sage from the Middle Ages. But this is something, again, what is going on right now in the separation, the wheat and the chaff, at the end of the age, there's going to be a separation of the sons of God and the sons of Belial, the sons of the devil, because, this Erev Rav is going to get separated out. There will be, because as we begin to come back into a right sound mind, to get knowledge again, to understand the level that Torah is written on and how it is written for our benefit, for our character development. Ephraim, aka Christianity, the 10 commandments are as binding on us as they are on Judah and as they were at Sinai. Sorry, Yah does not change. But he wrote, I want to read what he says about Midos and how important it is that, and this is where we have to have this reformation. We have to believe it's true, and we have to have these standards again. So he says, one of the basic foundations of religion is that the Almighty empowers man with prophetic vision. However, the spirit of prophecy, see, now this is how, again, why it says to look at the fruit, because there's so many, messengers out there, this guy says to do this, and this one says to do this, and Yeshua is like, you have to judge the fruit. But one of the things is everybody saying, oh, I got a word from the Lord and this and that, and why everything's so chaotic. I mean, the prophecy camps are, but the point is because they're leaving out this one component. You need to believe that Yahweh will honor a person of this particular type with true prophecy. It says, now, however, the spirit of prophecy rests only upon the wise man who is distinguished by great wisdom. He's got this level, wisdom, chokmah, understanding, this level of intelligence that is outside of our human, including our intellectual, we can, man is always, he can maybe think his way out of stuff sometimes intellectually, but this is what we're saying. It's way beyond that. Okay. So this person who's going to get prophecy is distinguished by great wisdom and strong moral character, whose passions never overcome him in anything whatsoever. Rather, he is mentally in control over his passions always. And he possesses a broad and sedate mind. Broad meaning he's broad-minded. He knows enough to understand, different nuances and things. And he has a sedate mind. He's not easily stirred up. He's calm. He's, don't worry about it. God is in control. Everything's going to be all right. Let's just get knowledge so we know what to do. The middle pillar is what it's really saying. Okay, I got to get through these somehow. Whose passions, rather, he is mentally in control of his passions, and he possesses a broad and sedate mind. When an individual filled with these characteristics and physically sound enters the spiritual paradise and is continually immersed in these great and profound themes, having the right mind capable of comprehending and grasping them, along with making himself holy, withdrawing from the ways of the ordinary masses who walk in the obscurities of the times, constantly energizing himself to train his soul not to have any thought at all of the wasteful endeavors and vanities of this present age and its intrigues. That's what Paul says, come out of Babylon. Stop being distracted by all the bells and whistles of Babylon. Focus. That's believer. That's what we're called. What I'm trying to say is we really need to focus, because what I believe is coming forward, and this is what the project, it is those of a devoted life. Those who get to, these are the true overcomers, the firstborn of Israel. This is a very important component, people, that we need to examine in our own hearts. So, pure and holy. Okay, so in order to be focused, the point on the higher things, as though bound beneath the celestial throne, in order to comprehend the pure and holy forms of spiritual beings. So but in other words, you need to get to this level. That's what I'm always saying. And this comes from profound Torah study. It comes from learning the letters, understanding the 3-letter roots. There are ways in which we can get back to pure streams of understanding. Not by reading a million different commentaries by a million different people, but by getting back to the foundation that was laid. 10 separate and 22 letters. So anyways, I just wanted to make those points about the Erev Rav, and why today, part of the problem is if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and fast and pray and kind of admit their shortcomings. We have fallen asleep. The reason all this has happened, we have fallen asleep. We have allowed the Erev Rav to get into positions of power and authority over us, even though, it was out there, people were warning, and, too late. Isn't how Joni Mitchell says, you always seem to go, you don't know what you got till it's gone. So now, because we do have a crisis, and we do also have a crisis of leadership, as we look now to new leadership, we do need to understand these distinctions and begin to be able to judge righteously. That's what I have to say. Shabbat Shalom, enjoy, and I will see you in the next episode.